Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. Let people know I've gone live. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I'm going to have to throw some gratefuls out there. I actually thanked myself, told myself I did a great job today because we have been in a cold spell. Oh my goodness. We're in our second week now, this cold spell. I thought we were coming out of it for about 10 minutes and we are back in it. It's supposed to get to like minus 33 by morning. And with a wind chill, that's going to be like minus 45 for sure. Today we got to about minus 32, minus 33. It was cold, but I enjoyed it because I bundled up. Oh my goodness. I should get my sister to take a picture of me sometime when I'm all bundled up in my winter gear, my snow pants, my face muffs, my little Hutterite wool bonnet. Oh my goodness. I'd have to say I look pretty cute in it, right? And I thought that I could just go to my appointment, jump on a bus, come home, right? And I thought, you know what? We haven't been outside for a while. You dressed for it, right? You dressed for it. So I walked home and I knew to go slow because it's like I could put skates on and skate home. That's how much ice is on our roads here. If you don't know, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We are in a little bit of a cold spell here. It's supposed to only go for one more week and then it's going to warm up a little bit. So that will be a nice change. I'm not somebody who normally minds the cold, but I have been preoccupied in other interests and applying myself in what I feel is prioritizing, right? But today I had to go out. I didn't have a choice. Well, I guess I did have a choice, but I chose to. And, after this appointment, I just said, okay, like, let's walk home. We haven't been outside for like, right, besides running to the grocery store for a few things. I haven't been outside on one of my walks. And, I said, you can try, Cindy. If it gets cold, right, just turn around and walk back to a main drag and take a bus. But I knew I could do it, right? And I knew I was going to enjoy it. And I really did enjoy it. I made a few pit stop. I walked into a thrift store and made a little bit of donation. I carry toques and hats in my backpack for homeless people that I come across that aren't dressed properly, right? And lots of times, right, when you take substances and stuff, you don't recognize really how cold it really, really is. Lots of times I see people outside in that terrible cold and they're in t-shirts and sweatpants and no socks, no jacket, no hat. And it's a little disconcerting. And at the same time, you have to use a little bit of discernment, right? Because if they are on substances, probably not a safe bet to make those approaches because, they might feel in their own insecurities that, it's an attack. And lots of times we were talking last night, if you jump out at me, I'm going to swing first and then ask questions, right? And that's part of my makeup. That's part of my upbringing. But I think it serves me well too in being able to be attentive to the goings on around me. But I went for a walk today. I was bundled nice and warm, happened into a thrift store, made a little bit of a donation. And in the meantime, they were having a big sale, fill a bag for $5. I don't need any more. I don't need any clothes. But, I would have given them $5 anyway and just said little donation, I would have said that. So I took a look around on the racks and I found a couple of nice not sweatshirts. Well, they're sweatshirts, but they're exercise, those ones that you can sweat in and it evaporates. And those ones are pretty expensive. And I've never worn one before. And because I do go for lots of walks, I thought, well, it's like a double X or something. So it's going to hang loose on me because you guys know that fabric, it just clings to every roll. And I bought a couple of other cute little shirts and a little shawl for spring. I like my little shorty shawls, and I left one of mine in the store, my favorite one, and I missed it, and I came across another one, so I grabbed that too, and for $5, I was super pleased. Then I went and did a little bit of grocery shopping, and then I went to another thrift store just to take a peek around to see if there was anything, that had some value to it that I might be able to, right, move it along, being a reseller, putting that roof over my head. I didn't find anything, but it was really quite wonderful to be out and about and in a neighborhood that might not be the best neighborhood in the whole world. But in the wintertime, there's not a lot of people out and about, right? Out on the streets and stuff. And the neighborhood is so beautiful. Right after the First World War, when everybody made those great big monster, right? Now they're all split up into rooming houses and everything. But, they were great big, I'm not going to say mansions, right? But they're just that one level below mansions. Just great, big, beautiful old houses. I love old architecture. I really do. And, I like the crisp air. And like I said, I was cozy in my outfit. When I got home, I had to go 100 miles an hour just to get my gear off because I put on a sweat just walking into the building, right? I was dressed for the cold today. I don't think I'm going to go out tomorrow. I think I'll just stay in. I've got some listing that I have to do. And of course, there's always perspectives out there that I like to delve into. And, I run on my own steam, my own perspectives, but coming from a dynamic family, uh, I've been able to pick up insights, perceptions, right? Not just perspectives, but perceptions that I can pick out of other people's perspectives. And, this is how I found all these different gifts in different religions and different spiritual ideas and different networks out there that, that hit home, that make a point and an impression on me. And you can't deny a truth when you see it, because when you see it, you feel it. And when you feel it, it just automatically, it's just like a sinking ship out in the ocean. It just goes down, right? And it's there forever. And again, we said this word discerning, right? And that's just to pay attention so that we don't pick up things that aren't ours, that aren't our beliefs. They don't belong to us. But lots of times we grow up, right? Teachers' perspectives, parents' perspectives, grandma's perspectives, the grumpy old man who lives next door's perspectives. And, being sensitive and empathic, we quite often, to please others, so others will like us, so that we are not perceived as something that's not relatable. We will take on other people's ideas. It took me years and years to compound my own perspectives and at the same time pluck out all these. Oh my goodness. Like it took me a very, very long time to get to where I am right now. And where I am right now, I doubt if I'm even a fraction of where I'm supposed to be, right? And I'm not picking things up constantly, but when I hit onto something, right? And you know you hit onto something because you just go like this, right? And you go, oh, and then you end up thinking about it all day, chewing on it, and then doing research on it. And I just love Google, especially now that it's so, you know, AI generated now that I could ask anything and there's an answer about it. There is information on it. And I've actually given myself an incredible gift. You know, I am a healthy person. I am grateful for my good health. But I have struggled with inflammation, right? And I didn't recognize that it came from not having good bacteria and just accumulating the bad bacteria. So, using AI learning, I delved into the topic. And because I'm not just an adventurer, I'm an experiencer too. I always have been. I was brought up to be an experiencer, and literally, right? And I know when I hit on to something that could be, that's curious. Maybe I'll try that. And if I try it and I experiment with it, oh my goodness, sometimes I hit something incredible. Probiotics. Right? I know about probiotics. I even went on probiotics. Oh my goodness, for the longest time, but it just seemed to cause me more issues than it caused good things in my body, right? And delving in deeper, I learned that your prebiotics have to be included in that equation. So you guys have seen me in the past couple of weeks. I'm eating applesauce and apples because these are prebiotics. Tonight I'm having apple juice. No, it's not beer. Mm. I just didn't have time to make a coffee. I wanted to be on time tonight. I wanted to be on the button. Wanted to apply myself, kind of my own little version of saying, I'm sorry. I know I said yesterday I was sorry, and I did think about jumping up and making a cup of coffee, but I thought, you know what? If I do that, it's going to be a few minutes after when I say that I'm going to show up. So you know what? Pour yourself a little apple juice. You're doing your body some good with it, right? There's even prebiotics in apple juice, not as much as apples, right? That's saying an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I don't know what was in my head, but it's 100% the truth. And this day and age that we live in, too, we eat so much junk. We talked about that yesterday. We talked a little bit about addictions and how I'm getting control over everything but that one thing, the goodies. And that's what did it to me. That processed food, that sugar, those carbohydrates, and noticing that you have issues, and then you kill all your good bacteria, right? And the only thing that's going to work is the bad bacteria. And that can cause us so many problems. They're even associating the bad bacteria with Alzheimer's. They are making such headway with that disease. it's absolutely a miracle. Innovation, everybody says the world's going to pot, right? That it's just hell town out there. But in truth, there's a lot of good things going on. But you know what? We love, right, to be freaked out. It gets our attention. It makes us feel about better about our miserable lives when we see the catastrophes and we feel the trauma going on and the pain and the illnesses, and and it's a terrible thing to say, and it's a terrible thing to think, but being human, it's a human trait, right? That when we don't feel good, right, we want something to reflect that there's worse out there, or we bring people down to the state that we're at. And that's a hard thing to wish on somebody, because that's on you, right? That's on me. I growing up, I was not that jealous and resentful kid or teenager or adult. Of course, there was differences. There would have been things that I wish I had, but I would never wish somebody's ill for my benefit. And again, I have to say, that I didn't probably think that I was worthy of those things, so there wasn't even any point in being jealous or resentful. I was just more accepting of the fact, right? But it is important for us to take care of ourselves to the best of our ability, right? To stick around for as long as I can. I'm grateful for my good health that it got me to this point, but I want that to continue. You guys know I love my goals. Hello, Eugene. Oh, it's Melvin tonight. Oh my goodness, Melvin made. Hi, Melvin. The body is amazing at fixing itself with regards to bacterial infections, and that's true. But when you make yourself your own enemy, you take antibiotics, right? You take antibiotics. You're not just killing the bad bacteria, you're killing the good bacteria. And you wipe that out, and your body and that bad bacteria has an opportunity without any competition to manifest itself even more in your body. And I think that's what happened to me, right? That I just felt just kind of, I don't know, dragged out. And I just happened on to some information while I'm doing my Googling and stuff. And I swear to God, like, I minor struggles, right? Like nothing, nothing that, right? I am grateful for my good health, and right, but it was still bothersome to me, right? It was still bothersome to me. So I was looking for solutions. I was looking at possibilities of what could be wrong. I'm so happy to see you, Melvin. How are you doing? I haven't heard from you in a little bit. So happy that you're here. Do you have a good cheer for me tonight, Melvin? Do you have a good cheer for me tonight? Melvin usually comes in and he always has a good cheer. That is why my doctor hates to give you antibiotics, because it does, in fact, weaken your body. And that's what I felt. I felt dragged out. I knew it wasn't just winter. And I didn't want to put myself in a state of thinking something was wrong, that I had a disease or something, right? And because we know what we think about is realized. And so if something is wrong, you have to be on it right away, if for nothing else, to relieve your own sense of mentality in it, so that you don't drum up something unnecessarily. But you know what? I appreciate that your doctor is like that. I had a great family doctor too. I haven't had my own family doctor since he retired, and that was a long time ago. And I'm grateful. I do a walk-in clinic if I have to go to the doctor, if I need blood work done or something, I'll go to walk-in clinic. But my doctor, uh, anytime I go to see him, he would always say, "Oh, Cindy, just meditate on it. Just go for a walk." I was never a meditator. My dad meditated twice a day. For myself, it just seemed, I hate to say this because there are lots of people out there who do meditate and they get a lot of benefits out of it. This is for me. Um, because of my hypervigilance, it's hard for me to just sit there and close my eyes and just right ohm it out. I just can't do that. My idea of meditation is going for the walks and connecting with Mother Nature, or sitting at the edge of a lake and staring out at a beautiful sunset or sunrise or the ripples of the water, or just looking even for rocks and then just be with myself in contemplation. That's about as good as it gets for me. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to try again, right? That I've given up the hopes of ever being a good meditator. I just have not found what works for me. And like I said, my dad meditated twice a day for 20 minutes for as long as I ever knew him. But at that time, I wasn't woke to any of these ideas, right? I just thought my dad just needed alone time because his family drove him a little bit cuckoos. He loved us to death, but right, we were a very dynamic family, and I could imagine that my dad needed his alone time. It's why he was a commercial fisherman. It's why, right, he had congenital heart disease. Why was he playing deadliest catch out in the middle of the ocean? But that's what it was, is just his way of connecting with Mother Nature and being out there in the middle of the ocean. And he'd go way north. At that time, we were from British Columbia, living in Vancouver. And he would go all the way up to Bella Coola, which is like by Alaska, right? And he would do his fishing and he'd be gone for months. And he absolutely just loved it. He had his own ways of connecting to Mother Nature. I don't like going out on the ocean so much anymore. I don't really detest it. It's not like I can't do it. And I do love the scenery and the landscapes and the rolling of the ships and stuff. But through my own experiences of being on my dad's little fishing boat, it kind of even looked like the Bubba shrimp boat. If you saw Forrest Gump, it right. My dad's boats looked like that, and they weren't big, and they were old usually because my dad was an entrepreneur and he'd buy his own boats. And right when they broke down and didn't work so well, he would just like get one of his buddies to follow behind him in the middle of the ocean. I don't know. Give anybody ideas because fishing boats are only allowed to be for specific fishing for I think 6 years or so, and then right they're defunct. So after was getting close to those 6 years, they would just take them out. He partnered with his brother-in-law, my mom's brother, and they would just take them out to the middle of the ocean and then they would just blow them up and let them sink, and he would collect the insurance and he would buy a new boat, right? This is what my dad did. That was his connection to Mother Nature. He also loved hunting. Not my thing. I don't even fish anymore, even though I did contemplate in going back to fishing because something happens in this world. I'm not saying that it is, but if something were to happen, would I be able to catch my dinner? Right? And because I'm not a big fan of fish. It would have to be the only reason I would fish and catch fish would be if I were to eat them. I would never traumatize a fish. I did it once. It was the last time I ever went fishing. I couldn't get the hook out, and I just said, forget this. And I just yanked it out, and half its cheek came off its face. And I went, oh my goodness. And I grabbed its tail and I swished it in the water. And that fish swam away. Guaranteed it was dinner for a bigger fish within 5 or 10 minutes for sure. I was so ashamed of myself. I just said, ah, that's it. I'm not fishing anymore. And I was a terrible fisher anyway. I was much better when I was a kid when I'd go out with my dad fishing. But, as an adult, I'm somebody who just loves to be in the floaty and just float around on the lake, right? Or go on. I even had my own boat license. I actually bought a boat. Um, my when my mother passed away, my sister had to get some credit cards forgiven with the bank, right? Because my mother liked to gamble. The whole family loved to gamble, right? Grateful, grateful that I'm not gambling anymore. But she had racked up her cards incredibly. And when she passed away, my sister, who dealt with all the official stuff, went to the bank and she managed to get the cards forgiven. So there was, I think, like 25, maybe 25,000 plus a few thousand in the bank. Each one of us kids, we didn't get much. I think we got $10,000 in total each between the four girls. Grateful for that, right? But I was a very frivolous person. I knew, and I was a VLT addict, video lottery term. I was still a gambler myself at that point. And I knew if I didn't invest that money, it would be gone. It would take me, oh my goodness, a week maybe, and it would have been gone. So I knew the money was coming in, and I started looking for boats, and I found myself a boat. And at that time, oil based paints were being taken off the market. Hello, Tammy. Thank you so much, Tammy, for watching all those videos. Melvin, Tammy was in my videos from like 10 years ago. She was watching some of my very first videos that I didn't even remember. When she sent me comments on them, I went in, oh my goodness, do I come in and sit in and listen to this video again? And I said, I just can't, right? Because I was bumbling along. I'm still bumbling along, but I was really bumbling along 10 years ago. And if you guys don't know, I've been on YouTube now for 11 years, exclusively on YouTube for over a year now. I have been exclusively on YouTube. It was just too much for me to be absolutely everywhere's, right? I would just much rather come in, have my platform, and you guys know I am a Google girl, right? That I love YouTube, I love Google, and I just want to, right, be part of that community. And I think I've held upheld myself in respect to being a good, not a good creator in like that talent, but that good creator in not causing problems, right? For YouTube, and in following the rules, right? And upholding the amazing platform that I'm so privileged to be here. Like, right? It's there's more and more creators all the time. But to be able to be on my platform 11 years and consistently, if you've hung out with me for any length of time, I'm here 6 days a week, unless I'm on the road. And that's something, right? That's something to be proud of. And, maybe I won't be like Logan Paul and be a YouTube superstar, right? Maybe not. but it's not important anymore because of the gifts that are just flowing into my life every day. That, I believe that my dad would have loved this. My dad was big on technology, he was big on innovation, and he was an entrepreneur himself, right? And it's too bad that he missed out on that, but at the same time, right? When my dad passed away, it was shortly afterwards that, you could go gambling in every single bar in the city. It was a big deal growing up. He had to go to like Reno or Vegas, which was 24 hours away drive. And he did that all the time, right? And he had his poker games on Friday night. Oh, and he had the racetracks, right? And the harness racing on Sundays, and but he would have been doomed, right, with video lottery terminals. That would have taken him out for sure. But he never seemed sad or miserable. And, I remember so many times him coming home with no money, right? Because us kids would always go for the wallet first. If we knew if it was a big fat wallet that we were going to get movie money and popcorn money and maybe a new pair of jeans or something. My dad was super generous, right? Super generous. But lots of times he didn't have that money, and he'd walk in the door with a 25-pound bag of rice. And we knew Mom would be getting her rice cookbook out, her 101 recipes for rice. And she was super creative and kept keeping us guys fed, right? When there was no money to be had, when my dad was playing catch up with himself. Oh my goodness, I could tell you stories of the circumstances, right? Getting stuck in Vegas and him having to go to the hotel manager to ask them if they could give him some money so he could put gas in the car to get us all home. Or the time he had a poker game and he put his brand new car, right, in the bid and lost the car on Christmas Eve when we were supposed to be driving to my aunt's. She lived in 150-mile house in British Columbia. It was bush. I'm just saying, way, 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 way out in the trap line, right? And he had to borrow a pickup truck in winter, and me and my sister Tracy had to sit in the back car in one of the coldest days of the year. All we had was a blanket over us, and we cried the whole way. And it was so bad, we were pounding, and my sister was passing out in the back of the truck. And but he promised his sister that we would spend Christmas with them, right? And it was like an 8-hour drive to where they lived from Vancouver. And taking that blanket off because we were crying the whole way, it actually tore the skin off of our faces because we were crying so hard, and it was so cold that it stopped. But there was no room because it was a pickup truck, and I had two other sisters, right? One was a baby, my mom and my dad were in the front. And then eventually they tried to do a swap out, but my little sister couldn't last 5 minutes in the back of the truck. So there was no choice, right? There was no choice. But these were the situations that we got into when my dad had those really bad days with gambling. Gambling in my family has been prevalent. It's still not beat. And in my lifetime, it might not be. But I tell you, right, there are a few things that were going on in our family that we have resolved. And I don't think going forward that, my nieces or nephews or their kids, that they'll have an inkling or a need to delve into those things. But who's to say, right? It's who we surround ourselves with. And, we could be the best parents, best grandparents, best guardians we can, but we send our kids to school. And not everybody is a good parent and a good grandparent, a good guardian. And it's not out of disrespect, but it's out of the need to be on base values so that everybody, no matter what kind of family you come from, that, there's kind of like those set understandings of how we're going to interact with each other. And again, in innovation, right? And the things that are going on in the world now, that there's so many amazing things, like, they're making such headways with Alzheimer's disease, and that is so amazing. I think, here we have bullying campaigns. They didn't have bullying campaigns when I was a kid. Man, I got beat up a couple of times a week right up through my high school. It was awful, right? But there were no values, there were no rules set. The teachers didn't pay attention, the parents didn't pay attention, and we were all up to our own demise. Like, we were like feral kids. We were what we surrounded ourselves with. And as much as my dad could say, well, don't do this and don't do this, but you're not just going to stand there and let yourself get the poop beat out of you, will you? Right? And eventually you do the very best that you can and not turning the other cheek. But the lessons have to be out there. And I wasn't that person just to turn around and walk away, right? I knew to turn the other cheek, but not before a conversation, not expressing how terrible, right? Somebody's parents brought them up, or, their potty mouths, or whatever it was that I could do in my own defense, right? To get a message across so that at the very least I'm not responsible for that person going off and doing it to somebody else, because that's what happens when you turn the other cheek, right? If the states turned the other cheek on Trump and didn't say anything to Trump, I bet you Greenland would be in his pocket right now, wouldn't it? And he might even be king of the world because everybody turns the cheek. I think it's amazing that, the Americans have such a voice and are able, right, to keep the majority accountable, right? And I believe in elections, and I believe in that everybody gets to have a say, and the Americans did vote this man in as president. And you have to uphold that, but at the same time, you misstep, right? You got to be ready to be course corrected, right? To be given a lesson by somebody or everybody who's not going to turn the other cheek. I know Melvin's got something to say about that. He loves his politics. I'm not quite sure how he feels about Mr. Trump, our President Trump, but again, it's to everybody's own decision and how you want to move, and how you want other people's to move. But you can't jam it down their throat. You can only be that example, and you can only be that person, right? And drum up that bravery. Okay, if you're going to turn the other cheek, and I'm not a true believer in turning the other cheek, but if you are going to turn the other cheek, don't do it until you've let somebody know that you know what they've done. You saw what they've done, right? Or you tell on them, right? You tell on them. And it doesn't always work out to the benefit of yourself or your community or the world. But at least you did your part, right? Not to be held responsible, not to feel that guilt and shame because you did turn the other cheek. Okay, let's come into the comments here. Um, oh, thank you. Thank you, Tammy. Yeah, no, I really, really appreciate it. It's right. I do topics that of all kinds. I explore the inside and the outside, literally the inside and the outside. And I was saying, Tammy, I went for a long walk today, and I was so proud of myself. And I kept expressing to myself, how proud I was that I didn't turn around and jump on the bus, that I just kept walking, and it was comfortable. My only concern was that there was so much ice on the sidewalks and ice on the streets that I thought maybe I might slip. And that's the last thing I want to do, especially, I'm going into my more mature age. And also because, I kind of, it's not a good thing to just be prideful, but I take pride in the fact that I have such good health at my age. I mean, there are people that are half my age and are not graced with that good health. And I do not want to waste that gift and I abuse it because it was given to me for a reason, not just to get to 114 years, which is my goal date for my life. Hey, and if I could go further with still my mentality and my noodles about me, that would be fantastic. But I think, we live in a world right now in the innovation and in the advancement in medicine and science, right? That we are going to get to that point pretty fast, I think, where we're going to get to the point where illness might be a thing of the past, right? I believe that's possible. Now there might be genes that have to be changed, like not genes like you wear, but your actual metabolism, all that molecules, right? That we are made up, that'll have to have a little bit of rearrangement, I think, and whether you're going to get it in a needle or a transplant or you breathe it in or you eat it somehow, right? I believe that we will, or like the bionic man, right? That eventually we are going to get to that point. I feel strongly about that, only because of some of my own experiences and being able to not suffer aches and pains. I did crack my ring finger, I think, this week when I put some pressure on. I can't find where the crack is, but every once in a while, when I put pressure on it, I can feel it shoot up the fingers. So it's there, but I've broken my fingers. You can see my baby fingers. I've broken my baby fingers. This one's worse. I got it fully straight, and I've never had them. I've never had them set, um, and I haven't got arthritis or anything, so they never cause me any pains. The worst that I guess is sometimes I get that itchy, itchy palm, but they say that's good luck that money's coming in. And lately, I've had lots of itchy palms. So yeah, let's see that money start to roll in. Okay, if you guys have never hung out with me, again, hi, I'm Cindy, and we pull cards. I have 54 powerful words here, and I pull a word. I usually do it at the end of the live because when I come in, I think those other parts of me get pretty excited. And we kind of banter together. So some of it's me, some of it's those other parts of me, and some of it is actually parts of others. When I first came in tonight, we started talking about it and going in and taking a listen and a feel to other people's perspectives, delving in and listening to the knowledge that comes from experts out there, that you learn so much, right? And people are worried that we rely on right? The AI modes, the Google, right? Chat BT, GPT. I've never used it. I might have used it once, but I am such a Google girl. I just stick with Google. But the idea is just to take that as information, and you may or may not need it in the moment. But if you Googled it, right? If you asked AI a question on that, then that's something for you to store. And maybe it's not for the moment, but maybe somewhere's down the road, right? It will come in handy. Just like if I go back to fishing, I'll have that experience. And if something happens, then I'll be able to feed myself, and at the same time, if I can't go to the grocery store and pick up some hamburger or some pork chops or something, that at very least, right, I will eat fish out of a necessity, right? You have to be willing in everything, right? And lots of people, right, they stop, they go, not a chance, right? And I do that too, but I tell you, I'd eat sushi if there was nothing else to eat, right? And I'm not a sushi girl. I don't like sushi, but I'd eat it if there was nothing else, if I was going to starve, if it was a necessity, right? Okay, you guys, let's just get into the word tonight. Just making sure didn't miss anything. Yeah, I'm really happy that I wish I had come to the understanding about probiotics and prebiotics, that I had delved in deeper, but when I found the probiotics weren't working for me, they were actually agitating my inflammation even more. I didn't recognize, prebiotics, what's that, right? I didn't understand what prebiotic, never even crossed my mind. But probiotics, right, won't do you any good if you just have bad bacteria, because the bad bacteria will just kill it right away, because the bad bacteria is so dominant, right? Especially when you take antibiotics, because it kills all the good bacteria, not just the bad bacteria. And so you have to go through a regime to build up that bacteria again, because probiotics, hardly any of that good bacteria gets through the stomach, right? Because it's killed by the time it hits the intestines. If you use the prebiotics get into the stomach. You take your probiotics, right? Your prebiotics go to battle on the bacteria. So then your probiotics get dissolved and run through the small intestines, where the prebiotics are in control, because you can't kill off the prebiotics, right? But you have to get them into your intestine, so that when the probiotics get through, then they can grow again, right? Yeah. Okay, you guys, enough of that. Bodily functions. But you know what? Unless we share these ideas, right? We share these little tidbits that we come across. And that's the idea, to be the example and the know-how for somebody else, right? If I had a flat tire, I would sure be appreciative of somebody to come along if they knew how to change a tire. And I would pay attention, so that next time that happened, I'd be able to change a tire. Okay, I don't know what kind of analogy that was, but that's what popped into my mind. Okay, you guys, let's pick a card. And I think we'll just pick this one here. Here we go. Oh my goodness, I haven't pulled this card yet. And what was I just talking about? Being the example for others, right? We got the word tonight, integrity. Integrity is the examples that others will follow, right? we were talking about that, even in having those baseline of values in the school systems, that even if some kid doesn't like you, well, those values say, well, you can't go up there and smack them in the head. You can't go and call them fatso or stupid or ugly, or right, and make somebody else's life miserable in that. But to each one of us, we are the example to anybody that walks in our environment. And if we do have those baseline values that we walk by, right? We live by, then we can become the example to those who are not getting those lessons, right? It was something, when we started bringing settlers in, and this country was just growing so fast, and it was like the jewel of the world. Everybody wanted to come to Canada. And even now, people have high regards when it comes to Canada. And it's not that we don't have faults, that we don't get things wrong, but we recognize when we get things wrong, and we right our wrongs. It's really important that we right our wrongs. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it takes decades, thousands of years, right? Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. But eventually we get it. We're getting so much better now, right? Because we have that influence out there, those good examples, and because we're so close to each other now with this age of AI learning, with YouTube, with television, headline news. And again, you got to be very discerning in that, right? Because everybody is out for your attention, right? It's just like a feeding frenzy out there. And because right, when I said when I came in today that with news and Instagram shorts, and I try to stay out of those shorts, but I fall into them myself too, right? It's easy when something interesting pops up on the screen that you go, "Ooh, what's that?" Right? But we are so hooked on seeing other people's miseries, other people's downfalls, because it makes us feel better about sometimes our miserable lives, or those hairy, scary moments that everybody goes through, but we don't want to go through it by ourselves, right? So we'll delve into these headline news: tsunami, school shooting, Donald Trump, right? And make a bad situation worse, or take an innocent out, right? And it's to each one of us to be discerning, and to feel it out, and to listen it out, and to understand for ourselves what a truth is, and also understand, right? The minority will always hold the majority accountable. So if we don't want that stuff on TV, in our YouTube and our Instagram shorts, if we don't want that, we're the ones that are supposed to not turn the other cheek on it, right? We're the ones to have those voices. And aren't we grateful, right? Is that the First Amendment? I'm not sure in the States, right? It's that everybody gets to have a say. Everybody gets to have a voice, right? And I think that's absolutely amazing, because when everybody gets to have a voice, right? If everybody wants to have a voice, then the wrongs in the world, right, will eventually be righted. And each one of us has that, right, that opportunity in our own integrity to build that up, right? All of us in this moment have integrity in one thing, but guaranteed you don't have integrity in absolutely everything. Mother Teresa didn't even have integrity in absolutely everything, but she had enough, right, to be that example for others. Okay, you guys. That's it for me tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. And for those of you who pop in later, I hope you had an amazing day or your day is off to a great start. Tammy, Eugene, Melvin, thank you so much for coming in, and we'll see you tomorrow.